Fellow citizens and residents, when I addressed you last, I invited you to pay attention to the voting sites. I also indicated that I would provide numbers and breakdowns for further study. I thank those persons who have commented and brought certain things to my attention. Therefore, in this broadcast, I will correct those errors and provide the statistics as promised. Constituency number 1 has 6,366 voters. That's 6366. Polling division number 1, the Catholic Parish Hall, East Independence Square Street, where 570 voters are assigned. Polling division number 2, Warner Park, has 3 stations. 2A has 413 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those whose surnames begin with F. Station 2B has 439 voters, with persons whose surnames begin with G to those beginning with M. And Station 2C has 407 voters, with those whose surnames begin with N to those whose surnames begin with Y. Polling division number 3, 3A is at Tucker Clark Primary with 534 voters whose surnames begin with A to those whose surnames begin with W. 3B to 3F are located at the Kim Collins Stadium, with 3B having 460 voters with surnames beginning with A to those whose surnames begin with G. Station 3C has 420 voters, with persons whose surnames begin with H to those whose surnames begin with O. Station 3D has 404 voters, with surnames beginning with P to those surnames beginning with Z. Station 3E has 412 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those surnames beginning with K. And 3F has 410 voters, with surnames beginning with L to those beginning with Z. Polling Division 4, located at the Public Works Department, is divided into 4A, 4B, and 4C. 4A has 407 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with F. 4B has 458 voters, with surnames beginning with G to those surnames beginning with O. 4C has 401 voters, with surnames beginning with P to those beginning with W. Polling Division 5 is located at the Police Training Complex, has 369 voters, and Polling Division 6, located at Hope Chapel, has 262 voters. In constituency number 2, there are 5,735 voters. That is 5735. Polling division number 1 at the Methodist Church Hall, Seaton Street, has 662 voters. Polling division 2 at Skellig has 2 stations. 2A has 400 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with I. And Station 2B has 419 voters, with surnames beginning with J to those beginning with Z. Polling Division 3, located at the Job Ward Center, Dr. Lake Drive in Shadwell, has 4 stations. Station 3A has 565 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with D. Station 3B has 511 voters, with surnames beginning with E to those beginning with I. Station 3C has 661 voters, with surnames beginning with H to those beginning with K. Station 3D has 545 voters, with surnames beginning with L to those beginning with Z. Polling Division 4, located at St. Barnabas Anglican Church, has 2 stations. 4A has 471 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with J. 4B has 467 voters with surnames beginning with K to those beginning with Z. Polling Division 5 at the CFBC has 617 voters. Polling Division 6 at the former CPU building has 417 voters. Constituency number 3 has 4,429 voters assigned. That's 4429. Polling Division 1 at St. Johnston's Community Center has 621 voters. Polling Division 2 at Antioch Baptist Church, Infirmary Road, has 269 voters. Polling Division 3 at the Methodist Church Room, Cardin Avenue, has 404 voters. Polling Division 4 at the Apostolic Faith Church, St. Johnston's Avenue, is split into two. 4A has 478 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with I, and 4B has 517 voters, with surnames beginning with J to those beginning with Y. Polling Division 5 at Nema Building is split into two. 5A has 633 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with K. 5B has 642 voters, with surnames beginning with L to those beginning with Z. Polling Division 6 at Bruntiwell School has 2 units. 6A has 423 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with J, and 6B has 442 voters, with surnames beginning with K to those beginning with Y. Constituency number 4 has 3,579 voters assigned. That's 3,579. Polling Division 1 at Challenges Community Center has a two-way split. 1A has 322 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those whose surnames begin with L. 1B has 284 voters, with surnames beginning with M to those beginning with W. Polling Division 2 at the Methodist School Room at Old Road is also split into two. 2A has 403 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with J. 2B has 327 voters, with surnames beginning with K to those beginning with W. Polling Division 3 at Tyrrell Williams Primary School has 2 units. 3A has 395 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with J. Station 3B has 423 voters, with surnames beginning with K to those surnames beginning with W. Polling Division 4 at Grace Gospel Hall, Middle Island, has 2 units. 4A has 318 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with H. 4B has 301 voters, with surnames beginning with I to those beginning with Z. Polling Division 5 at Halfway Tree Community Center is also separated into 2. 5A has 395 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with K. 5B has 411 voters, with surnames beginning with L to those beginning with Z. Constituency number 5 has 3,223 voters. That's 3,223. Polling Division 1 at the Sandy Point Recreation Ground has 3 polling stations. 1A has 414 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those surnames beginning with G. Station 1B has 382 voters, with surnames beginning with H to those beginning with Q. Station 1C has 412 voters, with surnames beginning with R to those beginning with Z. Polling Division number 2 at Sandy Point Preschool has 400 voters. Polling Division 3 at the former Xylee Supermarket on Station Street has 2 stations. Station 3A has 286 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with I. And Station 3B has 297 voters, with surnames beginning with J to those beginning with Z. Polling Division 4 at Emmanuel Methodist Church Hall has 378 voters. Polling Division 5 has 2 stations. 5A, Nazarene Gospel Hall, has 255 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with W for Fig Tree and its surrounds. Station 5B, which will be a container located in the gut, has 170 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those surnames beginning with W for the gut and its surrounds. Polling Division 6, the new Sandy Point Police Complex, has 269 voters. Constituency number 6 has 3,467 voters. That's 3467. Polling Division 1 at the Newton Ground Primary School has 2 stations. 1A has 352 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with J. 1B has 296 voters, with surnames beginning with L to those beginning with Z. Polling Division 2 at St. Paul's Community Center has 479 voters. Polling Division 3 at St. Paul's Primary School has 2 stations. 3A has 399 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with F. 3B has 329 voters, with surnames beginning with G to those beginning with W. Polling Division 4 at Diet Bay Primary School has 427 voters. Polling Division 5 at Parsons Community Center has 332 voters. Polling Division 6 at Sadler's Primary School has 493 voters. Polling Division 7, also at Sadler's Primary School, has 360 voters. Constituency number 7 has 3,846 voters. That's 3846. Polling Division 1 is at the Edgar T. Morris School and has 538 voters. Polling Division 2 at the Tabernacle Community Center has 497 voters. Polling Division 3 at Estridge Primary School has 355 voters. Polling Division 4 at the Covenant Outreach Church has 394 voters. Polling Division 5 at Joshua O. Williams School has 542 voters. Polling Division 6 at the Molineux Health Center has 471 voters. Polling Division 7 at the Mount Carmel Community Center has 322 voters. Polling Division 8 at Violet O. Petty School has 2 stations. 8A has 412 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with M, and Station 8B has 315 voters, with surnames beginning with N to those beginning with Y. Constituency number 8 has 7,370 voters. That's 7370. Polling Division 1 at the K-On Care Center has 2 stations. Polling Station 1A has 386 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those whose surnames begin with J. Polling Station 1B has 370 voters, with surnames beginning with K to those beginning with Y. Polling Division 2 has 2 stations. Polling Station 2A, located at the K-On Church of God, has 484 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with H. Polling Station 2B, located at the Redeemed Baptist Church, has 475 voters, with surnames beginning with I to those beginning with Y. Polling Division 3 at Keon Primary School has 2 stations. Polling Station 3A has 454 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those whose surnames begin with J. Polling Station 3B has 396 voters, with surnames beginning with K to those beginning with Z. Polling Division 4 is split into 6 stations by geography and by surnames. Polling Station 4A at St. Peter's Community Center has 330 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those whose surnames begin with H. Polling Station 4B at St. Peter's Community Center has 309 voters, with surnames beginning with I to those whose surnames begin with Y. Polling Station 4C at the Anglican Church Hall, St. Peter's, has 505 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with Y. Polling Station 4D at the Connery Community Center has 387 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those whose surnames begin with G. Polling Station 4E at Connery Community Center has 405 voters, with surnames beginning with H to those beginning with M. Polling Station 4F at Connery Preschool has 391 voters, with surnames beginning with N to those surnames beginning with Z. Polling Division 5 at St. Peter's Primary School is divided into 5 stations. Polling Station 5A has 438 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those whose surnames begin with C. Polling Station 5B has 352 voters, with surnames beginning with D to those whose surnames begin with G. Polling Station 5C has 410 voters, with surnames beginning with H to those beginning with L. Polling Station 5D has 381 voters, with surnames beginning with M to those whose surnames begin with Q. Polling Station 5E has 434 voters, with surnames beginning with R to those whose surnames begin with Y. Polling Division 6 at Keys Community Center has 453 voters. Constituency number 9 has 6,669 voters. That's 6669. Polling Division 1 at the Church of God in Cox has 476 voters. Polling Division 2 is divided into 2 stations. Polling Station 2A at Elizabeth Primary School has 355 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those whose surnames begin with K. Polling Station 2B at the Old St. John's Primary School Annex has 332 voters, with surnames beginning with L to those whose surnames begin with W. Polling Division 3 is divided into 4 stations. Polling Station 3A at Ivor Walters Primary School has 412 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those whose surnames begin with D. Polling Station 3B at the Ivor Walters Primary School has 328 voters, with surnames beginning with E to those whose surnames begin with L. Polling Station 3C at Ivor Walters Primary School has 365 voters, with surnames beginning with M to those beginning with R. Polling Station 3D at the Cicely Brown Integrated School has 311 voters, with surnames beginning with S to those beginning with Z. Polling Division 4 is divided into 3 stations. Polling Station 4A, located at Marion Heights, Education Department, Marion Heights, has 307 voters, with surnames beginning with A to those whose surnames begin with G. Polling Station 4B, located at Education Department, Marion Heights, has 312 voters, with surnames beginning with H to those beginning with M. Polling station 4C, located at the United Pentecostal Church, has 384 voters with surnames beginning with N to those whose surnames begin with X. Polling Division 5, located at the Albertha Payne Center, Bath, is split into two. Polling Station 5A has 414 voters with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with J. Polling Station 5B has 419 voters with surnames beginning with K to those beginning with Z. Polling Division 6, located at the Methodist Church Hall in Charlestown, has two stations. Polling Station 6A has 396 voters with surnames beginning with A to those whose surnames begin with L. Station 6B has 338 voters with surnames beginning with M to those beginning with Z. Polling Division 7, located at the Magistrate Court, has 450 voters. Polling Division 8 has two stations at the Charlestown Primary School. Polling Station 8A has 445 voters with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with K. Polling Station 8B has 481 voters with surnames beginning with L to those beginning with Z. Polling Division 9 at the courthouse has 144 voters. Constituency number 10 has 1,845 voters. That's 1845. Polling Division 1, located at New River Methodist Church, has 207 voters. Polling Division 2, located at Gingerland Preschool, has 233 voters. Polling Division 3, located at the Hard Times Building, has 339 voters. Polling Division 4 at Charles Walters Community Center, Hanleys Road, has 141 voters. Polling Division 5, located at the Charles Walters Community Center, Hanleys Road, has 565 voters. And Polling Division 6, located at the Gingerland High School, has 360 voters. And I should add here that the entrance to the Gingerland High School is on the eastern side on the Estate Road, the Hard Times Estate Road. Constituency number 11 has 4,404 voters. That's 4404. Polling Division 1 at NEPAC has 389 voters. Polling Division 2 at Jessop's Community Center has two stations. Polling Station 2A has 379 voters with surnames beginning with A to those whose surnames begin with K. Polling Station 2B has 395 voters with surnames beginning with L to those beginning with Z. Polling Division 3 at the Cotton Ground Community Center has two stations. Polling Station 3A has 323 voters with surnames beginning with A to those whose surnames begin with K. Polling Station 3B has 357 voters with surnames beginning with L to those beginning with Z. Polling Division 4 at VOJN Primary School has two stations. Polling Station 4A has 369 voters with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with K. Polling Station 4B has 419 voters with surnames beginning with L to those beginning with Y. Polling Division 5 at Trinity Methodist Church Hall has 472 voters. Polling Division 6 at Franklin Brown Community Center has 405 voters. Polling Division 7 is in two locations. Polling Station 7A at the Church of God, Brooklyn, has 481 voters with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with Y and who live in Brooklyn and its surrounds. Polling Station 7B at the Butters Community Center has 415 voters with surnames beginning with A to those beginning with Y and who live in Butlers and its surrounds. The voters list, therefore, as currently configured, contains 38,015 voters in St. Kitts. That's 38015 voters in St. Kitts, and 12,918 voters in Nevis. That's 12918, for a total of 50,933 voters. That's 50933. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention, and may God continue to bless us all.